Right, thank you, Francois. Appreciate the introduction. So today we're going to be talking about momentum securities. I suppose at Momentum Securities, we have the privilege of spending a large portion of our day focused on exploring new opportunities, investigating companies. And as a result, today what I'd like to do is to really break the presentation up into two. The first part, just a little bit of an introduction on Momentum Securities, where we fit in, and then we'll move on to a story of one of those companies that we've recently found, which I found quite interesting, and hopefully you will too. So in starting, just an introduction to Momentum Securities, who Momentum Securities are. I think few would know it, but we are in fact one of the oldest stockbrokers in South Africa, with origins dating back to 1938. I guess the evolution of the business really took quite a significant turn in 2018. It was the first of two strategic choices that have really shaped the recent chapter of our business. And that being an introduction of offshore trading into what was otherwise a predominantly South African JSE-focused business. And then the second strategic choice that we undertook was a growth initiative to partner with IFAs in terms of collectively growing our client bases and everything that would entail: ease of business, global market access, etc. What do we mean by global market access? Global market access for us means providing your clients with the ability to access investment opportunities anywhere around the globe, whether it's a healthcare company in India, whether it's a cannabis farmer in America, or a tech company in Hong Kong. If it is liquid and traded on the market, chances are you will be able to access it through Momentum Securities. How we provide that access to our valued clients is through a global network of partners giving us global market access. One of those partners happens to be Swissquote, our primary strategic offshore trading partner based in Switzerland. The picture that you can see on the screen now is their head office in Gland, which is about a 15-minute train drive just outside of Geneva, and a few market statistics to give you a sense of the scale of Swissquote. Right, so through Swissquote and Momentum Securities partnership, we provide access to a number of capabilities. It's everything from accessing equities through one of the 60-plus stock exchanges globally. It's accessing bonds, ETFs, structured products, unit trusts, you name it. We provide discretionary management services where we assist with the private client asset management component. We provide custody services, and we provide just trading functionality. This spans pretty much the entire globe. What you see on screen now, every part that's colored in is a market that we are currently able to access. And I'm sure you'll agree, the vast majority of the globe now covered across all first and emerging markets that are frequently traded. One of the unique features of a Swissquote account is the fact that it is a quasi-bank and securities account. What I mean by that is it is obviously a custody account that holds any of your investment instruments, for example, equities, but also holds cash alongside your financial instruments, be it dividends, a deposit, or perhaps just a cash position that you want. What's unique about Swissquote is you can then make use of the account as a fully enabled transactional bank account across multiple currencies, 12 currencies today. What you see on screen now is a credit card linked to your securities account, and wherever you are in the world, you can simply swipe, tap the card, and make use of it to travel, shop, and of course trade. And one of the other unique features is there is no explicit minimum in order to have a Swissquote account. As any reputable bank account or custodian account, you've got 24 access online to your account, be it for trading, obviously within market hours, or for banking purposes, 24/7. Right, now that you know who Momentum Securities is and where we fit in, I'd like to spend the rest of the time just talking you through one of those stories. Hopefully it's an interesting story of a company that we've recently encountered. This particular company happens to be a US-based company and a biotech company at that. So the story today starts with this dog, wolf, dire wolf if you really want to be technical. And for those that aren't familiar with it and presumably have not watched Game of Thrones, a dire wolf is an apex predator that roamed the Americas as far south as Venezuela, as far north as Canada, but was last seen on planet Earth approximately 10,000 years ago when it was believed to have gone extinct. So what are you looking on screen at the moment? Is it an AI-generated picture? Obviously not. It is, in fact, a dire wolf that has been brought back from extinction. Colossal, a US-based company, has really been responsible for the groundbreaking technology, genetic modification technology, in order to bring this dire wolf back from extinction. And if you just think about that for a moment, this is the first occasion in human history that a long extinct animal has been brought, or any animal, been brought back from extinction. Today, Colossal is worth approximately $10.2 billion US, about 180 billion rand. It is only 3 years old, approaching its 4th birthday at the moment, and is only employing approximately 130 employees, most of which being scientists contributing to the research. If you look at the picture of the 2 young pups being held by the scientific parents, you are looking at 3-month-old dire wolves, Romulus and Remus. For those that are fans of Roman mythology, you'll know that Romulus and Remus are the 2 brothers once left for dead by their father, raised by a wolf, as mythology would have it, and went on to establish Rome, the city. I think you'll agree that these pups not only resemble what we're accustomed to, but are pretty similar to puppies in every sense of the word. They do what puppies would be expected to do: eat, play, sleep, but with a few very noteworthy exceptions. For starters, you can see it from the size of their paws. These 2 puppies are exceptionally large for 3-month-old puppies. In fact, in these pictures, they weigh approximately 36 kilograms and roughly the size of a mid-sized German Shepherd already. They will, of course, go on. These puppies were born on the 1st of October 2024 and would go on to hopefully in excess of 100 kilograms each. I think at 6 months, they're around 80 kilograms, so it's a fair assumption. And then on the left-hand side, a younger sibling born on the 1st of January 2025 by the name of Khaleesi, a little girl. Obviously, Khaleesi, a throwback to the famous Game of Thrones character. So what makes a dire wolf different? As I've alluded to, the size for starters. You can see there a bit of an image of a dire wolf in excess of 7 foot long and estimated to weigh anywhere between 100 and 120 kilograms when fully grown. You can also see how it compares to a healthy, fully grown husky. And of course, a human being at 6 foot long. So relatively intimidating and not necessarily a family household pet.
Tell me a little bit about what went into engineering the dire wolf.
We extracted DNA from 2 fossils that we knew from previous work had some amount of preserved ancient DNA. One was a 13,000-year-old bone, and the other was a 72,000-year-old bone, an inner ear bone. We were able to generate 2 genomes, 2 dire wolf genome sequences from that, which we then compared to all the other wolves for which there's already been data generated. And when we do that, we want to figure out where it is that these 2 dire wolves are similar to each other, but different from the other wolves that are out there. And so we come up with this list of genes where they're distinct. Now, our goal in the dire wolf project, just like with all de-extinction projects, is to re-engineer the core traits, the core characteristics that made these extinct species unique and able to fill whatever role that they filled in their ecosystems when they were still alive.
Using this knowledge, Colossal then made 20 modifications to 14 genes in the DNA of common gray wolf cells. These relatively few tweaks to the genetic code produced some big differences. The dire wolf's white coat, large size, characteristic vocalizations like that howling you heard at the beginning of the story, and more. That DNA was transferred to denucleated egg cells, meaning cells without their own genetic material, and then developed into embryos and were then implanted in the wombs of surrogate mothers, who were hound mixed dogs.
Okay, so now that you've seen how Colossal achieved this breakthrough, in summary, it can really be diagnosed into 3 different steps. The first one is the DNA retrieval from a fossil. Hopefully it's a retrieval where the DNA has been preserved largely, which is where the second step comes in. Over time, some of the DNA deteriorates and could have gaps in the DNA, which is really where Colossal's breakthrough comes in, filling some of those gaps with a relative species of the particular animal. And then the last one, which is artificial insemination to a denucleated embryo cell, which effectively makes a genetic copy of the DNA. The last point, funny enough, is probably the longest standing technology, in that it was a breakthrough approximately 30 years ago. I think it was 1996, and was, of course, the famous Dolly the sheep cloning, the first successful cloning of an animal. When one looks at a direwolf, this is one of those puppies that I showed earlier. Now it's 6 months old, and as I mentioned, weighing in excess of 80 kilograms. At this particular point in time, it was estimated by the scientists that created them that these 2 animals at 6 months old would be capable of catching, killing, and eating a 900 kilogram bull bison. It took surprisingly few genetic modifications to create the direwolf, about 20 edits to 14 genes in total. Just for context, a direwolf has approximately 13,000 genes, and in comparison to a human being, approximately 30,000. Interestingly, a mouse is also approximately 30,000. What were those changes required in order to give rise to this direwolf? For starters, the unique pointed nose, a stronger jaw, stronger teeth, its white coat, larger size, more muscular chest and posture, and a muscle-to-weight ratio closer to that of a lion than a common wolf as we know them today. And it's not the direwolf alone that will be welcomed back. Other works in the project include the giant moa, native to New Zealand, but extinct for approximately 600 years. It's a 12-foot flightless bird. You can see a small little image of a moa versus a human being. Then there's also the Tasmanian tiger, native to New Guinea and now extinct for approximately 2,000 years, both of which expected to be brought back to life on planet Earth in the next 5 to 10 years. But before we see both of those, the woolly mammoth is on somewhat of a tight schedule. It took approximately 35 days to genetically bake the 3 direwolves that we showed earlier, whereas in the case of the woolly mammoth, its closest living kin today being the Asian elephant, has a gestation period of approximately 22 months. And the number of genetic changes required in order to get the woolly mammoth back. In the case of the direwolf, again, 20 changes. In the case of the woolly mammoth, 85, of which 25 have already been completed and on track for an expected completion of all 85 by the end of the 2025 calendar year, with artificial insemination scheduled for early 2026. What do those changes do? The obvious ones would be the larger posture, the tusks, the shaggy coat, as well as the unique ability to store fat within the woolly mammoth, which you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, which really allows the woolly mammoth to survive some of the harshest conditions on the planet. Remember the old saying, dead as a dodo? I'm afraid that's going to need a little bit of a rethink because, as you would have guessed, next on the agenda is the dodo, native to Mauritius and extinct since the 1600s. A bit of a sidetrack, but I couldn't resist. You can see a skeleton of the dodo, almost complete skeleton, which was auctioned off in 2016 for a staggering 6.6 million rand. And also happens to be one of the worst investments. I can't imagine that skeleton will be worth much when we have the real thing back on planet Earth. If some of this seems familiar, that's probably because Hollywood has been here before. And spoiler alert, it does not end well for humans. In addition to the exciting prospect of taking your grandchildren to the real Jurassic Park in years to come. There is also some very real-world applications for this science. First and foremost, conservation. You can believe me, not Donald Trump. Global warming is real. And as such, approximately 1/3 of all marine mammals and mammals on land are expected to face some degree of extinction due to global warming, and in addition to that, plant life. What Colossal are doing is they are diagnosing and preserving DNA of some of these endangered species, with the thesis being that if some of these animals do face extinction, they can be reintroduced back on planet Earth and keep the ecosystem healthy. The most urgent project is that of the South China tiger from China, obviously, where there's believed to be fewer than 100 left in existence, and they are currently being genetically diagnosed and stored. It does get a little crazier than this. That's, I suppose, where Elon Musk comes in, because one of the more ambitious projects, if there can be more ambitious projects, but if that is the case, Colossal claim a project to diagnose and map every DNA of every living species on planet Earth, including that of human beings. And the reason one would do that is if Earth was ever to face an existential threat, you could simply take the learnings from the mapping on another planet. That's where Elon Musk comes in, on Mars. And theoretically, we now have the science to recreate any or all living creatures that once resided on planet Earth. Okay, so why would I be telling you a story about an unlisted company which technically isn't capable of being invested in at the moment? What's important to remember is there's a journey towards commercial viability, and the first steps are already achieved in the form of two companies having been spun out of Colossal and IPO'd, the first of which is a company by the name of Breaking. Breaking is essentially a company where some of this breakthrough technology was used to recreate microbes and enzymes that are capable of surviving on plastic. So it eats plastic. The applications are endless, but just to demonstrate one such example, you could create this enzyme, implant it in a landfill site, leave it for however long, 100 years, return to the site, and all waste would have been consumed. Similar applications are being explored for ocean plastics and the like. So no harmful experience for the environment, but rather one of the ways in which we can clean up the globe. A separate IPO was also in the form of Bioform. Bioform is a little bit more boring, I suppose. It's a tech platform upon which other pharmaceutical companies can rent space and explore the development of new pharmaceuticals and drugs using some of biotech's AI technology. Now, both of these have placed a value on the company of somewhere around $10 billion US, but it's not even really going close to the real core science that exists within bio, which is, of course, bioengineering and cell development. Some of the applications which are being worked on at the moment, in addition to the earlier examples, is if you think of yourself as an individual, perhaps you've got a genetic predisposition to some disease, diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, etc. The technology exists today to map out your genetic code, identify those vulnerable points in your genetics, and effectively erase them and replace them with healthy genes. Effectively meaning that your future generations, or even yourself, needn't be exposed to some of those genetic predispositions and extend your lifespan. And if you can just think about the commercial application of that. Let's be honest, most of your clients aren't going to remember the time that you introduced them to a particular ETF or a sector, or in some cases funds. But they will remember the first time that you introduced them to the company that brought back the woolly mammoth. I think for me, the reason why I've elected to share this story today is share portfolios are not just an investment. They're a conversation starter. I think they're a differentiator, and they're a very interesting way of pursuing a particular interest, need, or client expression. Although we don't have time today to talk through all of the pharmaceutical developments, I did want to quickly highlight a few of the pharmaceutical companies which we are researching and find favor with as investment prospects. If you focus on the bubbles for a moment, what you're looking at in the the few green bubbles right at the bottom of the screen in the middle, those are the total number of companies, pharmaceutical and healthcare companies, that are accessible in South Africa via the JSE, 4 in total, with a market cap of 60 billion in aggregate. Compare that to the international universe of in excess of 600, with a total market cap of over 15 trillion. And this is just the listed universe. Of course, companies like Colossal would not be included in these numbers. And for me, a really compelling reason to extend your focus beyond just South African borders. We're, of course, available via IPSPs through the Momentum Wealth International platform. For anyone interested in learning a little bit more about Momentum Securities, you can scan the larger QR code on screen right now. But let's be honest, you're probably just wondering when you can buy a T-Rex, in which case you are welcome to scan the smaller QR code to learn more about some of the exciting work that Colossal is doing. In closing, I would like to leave you all with a gift. It's a very special gift in my opinion. The picture you're looking at on the screen right now, the story goes that Romulus and Remus, which are those 2 puppies that you see on screen, were undergoing their first evaluation from their vet. I think it's the vet that's holding them at present. And just outside of the examination room, the door was left open and the vet's daughter was sitting in the reception watching a movie on her iPad. That movie is The Little Mermaid. And at some point in the movie, the main song, Under the Sea, started playing, and spontaneously these 2 dogs reacted, which I'll show you in a second. I say it's a very special gift because this is the first time in 10,000 years that this sound has been heard on planet Earth. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy.